screen. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. Let me get this out of the way. So welcome. I'm so pleased that you've all made the time today on a Sunday to come together to talk about mindful research. This is the first time I'm teaching this workshop and I'm very excited about it. I hope that everybody is both able to see my screen and has this handout. I believe Lori Beth tweeted the link. I'd like to point out at the top of the handout, I see everybody's in the introductions document, so feel free to keep using that. If you would also take a moment to open the activities document and just keep that tab open on the side of the screen. Because I'm not going to be able to hear you today, this is how we're going to interact. And so I really hope that you'll take advantage of this so that it's not just a one-way workshop. So again, I just want to say welcome, and I want to say how amazing it is today that we've been able to gather together to talk about feminist mindfulness. And I want us to start by just taking a deep breath. So if you just want to close your eyes for a moment and take a deep breath. And just congratulate yourself for making the time to be here today. As Lori Beth was talking about with FSDW, this is an online community, and today we are creating an online community of feminist scholars who are invested in self-care, which is absolutely amazing. So I wanted to start out by just talking a little bit about the learning objectives for today's workshop. I've set aside 3 learning objectives. The first is I hope that you're able to come away with an understanding of what mindfulness is, and separately, what an understanding of a mindfulness practice is. The second learning goal is to be able to recognize and begin to define how mindfulness is a feminist self-care practice. This is one of the learning goals I'm really excited about because there's not a lot of scholarship on this, and we're going to be creating scholarship together today. And the third thing I want you to come away with is the ability to start thinking about ways, concrete ways to integrate a mindfulness practice into your life and scholarship, okay? So these are going to be the guiding principles for today. Let's see if I can just hide that. I've also written a community statement, and I want to take a moment to go over that. In the spirit of self-care, I am going to be sharing a bit of personal information today, and it's possible that you might share personal information in some of the activities documents. So I want us to take a moment together to formally acknowledge that during this workshop, we will be entering into community with each other. We have opportunities to engage with one another and to share our thoughts. And I ask that we cultivate a respectful, supportive atmosphere. May we take care of both ourselves and each other during this hour. So before we jump in, I just want to step back for a moment and talk about why I created this workshop and just give you a bit of background about my own experience with the practice of mindfulness. So the first reason I created this workshop is that it's part of a personal project I have to destigmatize mental health issues. In our culture, and I find particularly in our academic culture, we are somewhat open to talking about ailments of the body. You can talk about broken bones, maybe surgery or upcoming dental work. But issues of the mind, the heart, of the soul are often taboo. So I'll say now in front of you that I have struggled for years, often silently, with depression, anxiety, and an eating disorder. When I was really immersed in academia getting my master's degrees, I found that all of my energy, every last bit of it, went into cultivating my intellectual projects, and I found that I left my mental and my physical health to the side. So for me, a mindfulness practice has been one of the most useful tools I've found in my recovery. And I want you to hear me clearly when I say one of the most useful tools. It has not been by any means the only tool, and it does not replace counseling or other professional help. But one key thing that my mindfulness practice has done for me is to help me reintegrate myself and to feel present in my own body and mind. It's helped me learn how to have an intellectual life without sacrificing the rest of my life. So I also hope that by sharing that bit of information, if you're having your own struggles, you will also know that you're not alone and that it's okay for us to talk about these types of things openly. The second seed for this workshop actually comes from my work as a librarian. So as Lori Beth said, I work with researchers every day from all walks of life doing all kinds of different projects. The majority of the researchers I work with are dissertation students, and I see how tired they are. You know, they're doing archival research at many repositories. They're with us for long hours. I know that they're working on chapters in their dissertations and teaching, and the same is true for faculty and even independent scholars. And as I watch this, I realize that you know, from a different perspective, that self-care is very difficult in academia. There are so many demands on your time and energy, and it's really easy to put ourselves at the bottom. And then the third reason that I started this workshop, or started thinking about this workshop rather, is that I began to think about my mindfulness practice in the context of what I'll call my feminist practice. And I was not able to find any scholarship that puts these two practices in dialogue. So this workshop is an opening gamut to do so. Together today we are going to be creating knowledge and generating ideas, and by the end of this hour we will have made progress towards a feminist analysis of mindfulness as a self-care practice. And I really hope that we can continue to think about this and write on this together. So the first question that we need to take up today is a question of definitions. I want us to think about what is mindfulness. You know, if you search the web or stop by your local bookstore or library and take a quick survey, you'll find a lot of books on mindfulness. And each book has, you know, somewhat of a different definition. Some of these definitions derive from Buddhism, others from business literature, another set from psychologists, and the list goes on and on. Just to give you a sense of how popular a topic mindfulness is, I did some research and found that from January 2013 to January 2015, there have been about 600 books published in the United States that contain mindfulness in the title. As you also may have heard, even behemoth companies like Google have begun offering mindfulness training for their employees. So really, our culture seems inundated with the concept of mindfulness. And I fear that with this inundation, mindfulness can lose its potency and can become just another cliche, you know, just another way to cope in this hectic, overconnected, overworked world. So I want to acknowledge these potentially negative attributes about mindfulness, but I would also like to posit that mindfulness is an important component to feminist self-care. So let's step back for a moment and try to come to a shared understanding of what mindfulness is. I want to say that we're going to do so from a secular perspective, not taking up a discussion of its Buddhist origins. So on the handout, I've provided a couple of definitions that really speak to me. The first definition says, mindfulness is deliberately paying full attention to what is happening around you and within you, in your body, heart, and mind. Mindfulness is awareness without criticism or judgment. I want to read that through a second time because I really want you to take in what it's saying. Mindfulness is deliberately paying full attention to what is happening around you and within you, in your body, your heart, and your mind. Mindfulness is awareness without criticism or judgment. Okay. So the second definition that I really like takes this first definition and builds upon it, and it also places mindfulness in an academic context, which is what we're talking about today. It says, mindfulness is a conscious, purposeful way of tuning in to what's happening in and around us. This specific approach to paying attention and honing awareness improves mental focus and academic performance. It also strengthens skills that contribute to emotional balance. The best of our human qualities, including the capacity for kindness, empathy, and compassion, support and are supported by mindfulness. Mindfulness is the means, and deep caring describes the manner. Now, as I said earlier, for me, mindfulness is a way of self-sustaining, and I thought I would contribute my own definition for mindfulness here. You can see how it's similar, yet again slightly different from the previous two definitions that I shared. So for me, in my own life, mindfulness is resting in peaceful non-judgment. I just want to say that first part again. Mindfulness is resting in peaceful non-judgment. It requires full, compassionate awareness of your entire experience at that moment, your body, your mind, and your heart. It is awareness that allows whatever is happening to happen, but it does not intervene. So I want to take a time now to turn to our activities document, and I'd really love for you to share what mindfulness means to you in your life or how you understand mindfulness. And please don't worry about formatting, grammar. These can be full sentences or not. This is just a live shared journal of our workshop experience. So I'm going to pause while you share your thoughts. And as I'm looking at this document with you all sharing your thoughts, I find myself very moved because, I can see the impact that mindfulness has for some of you, and I really appreciate you interacting in this way and sharing these pieces of yourself with us. So I want you to keep sharing your thoughts, and I'm just going to go through and verbalize a little bit of the amazing thoughts that are being shared here. Someone else is sharing their thoughts about mindfulness as a tool that has helped them recover from depression. I just saw this one, stand in your place and know you are there. That is very true. I'm seeing words like thoughtful and deliberate. I'm seeing words about daily, that mindfulness is actually a daily effort, not something that we do just once. I see someone who's really tying it to what they do academically. It's being fully present in what they're doing, and it's deeply integrated into their ethnographic research practice. That's amazing. I actually think that researchers already have a lot of the tools for mindfulness in our toolkit that we apply to our projects, and we need to, just kind of switch and apply them to our lives. Mindfulness is a struggle. I see someone write, and I have to say that mindfulness is absolutely a struggle. Sometimes I feel that maybe my mindfulness practice is actually just fledgling, Roxana, I see you're saying that mindfulness is the capacity to live in the moment. Yes. It's about our language also, using all-inclusive, sensitive language. I see someone else saying that mindfulness helps them to get through difficult situations. Being able to listen to ideologies that we don't agree with or that we find offensive. I love this. Mindfulness means that I get to tell myself I'm caring about you. I tend to be too critical to myself. I absolutely hear that, and that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later in the workshop. I see something else. Mindfulness is about watching your breath and tuning into what is happening in your body, not judging. Very interesting. I see this comment about being a mindful parent, and it seems another requirement of intensive parenting that's put on mothers especially. It's a very good comment. Okay, so I want you to continue to share your thoughts, but it looks like the document is calming down just a little bit. So I want to move to our next step, which is to think about the difference between mindfulness and a mindfulness practice. So a mindfulness practice is comprised of the concrete ways that you integrate mindfulness into your life. So the concrete ways that you integrate this state of being, this presence, this awareness into your life. There are many, many ways to do this. Some ways that you might already be familiar with are mindfulness meditation. So this might be a body scan, a loving kindness meditation, meditation that focuses on the breath, or meditation about eating mindfully. There's also mindful activity, and this is I would say the primary way that I practice mindfulness, and this can be swimming, walking, again, breathing, journaling. Some people even try to read mindfully, read tuning in a different way. Another way that's very common and that you'll probably see in a lot of the literature at the bookstore is mindful activity in a specific context. So one of the most popular examples of this is mindfulness at work, right? Because a lot of us spend a lot of time at work and it's very stressful, or it can be very stressful. So for instance, one mindfulness practice at work may be, instead of rushing to answer the telephone as soon as it rings, to hear the telephone, to stop and take breath, and then to answer the telephone. I have to say that I don't advocate any one of these mindfulness practices over the other. I think that they all have their benefits, and I think it's important to experiment and to find what works for you, and to know that what works for you one day might not work for you the next day, right? Even in your mindfulness practice, you have to be present and know what is going to suit the needs of your body and mind that day. So I want to switch back to the activities document, and I want to see if anyone has a specific mindfulness practice that they'd like to share, and just go ahead and keep adding on to the bottom of the document. Knitting, yes. Baking, absolutely. Walking and focusing on the breath. Yoga, and I see someone is also recommending some specific yoga. That's wonderful. Listening to music, taking the time to shut everything else out and put a record on. I find often that I tend to put music on in the background but not give it my full attention, and it's a real treat when you do. Listening to the sounds of the forest. I live in Boston in the middle of the city, so there's not much of that for me, but I have to say that I was up early this morning and I had the window open and I was able to sit and listen to the birds. Yes. Standing tall and breathing deeply in both public and private spaces. Yes. Absolutely. Email free moments throughout the day. Definitely. someone is being honest and saying that they do a lot to avoid mindfulness, and I have to say that I absolutely understand that. Sometimes the last thing that you want to do is tune into what's going on inside. Journaling. I'm so glad that someone has mentioned poetry. I find that that is one of the other keys to my mindfulness practice, because I find that a poem, to understand it, you really have to feel it and you have to be there, be present with it. Prayer, absolutely. I see someone has written cuddle with your cat. I absolutely agree there too. So this document, seeing people contribute their mindfulness practices, again, just gives you a whole sense of how many ways there are to practice mindfulness. And I hope that it's maybe giving you some new ideas also. I know that I'm going to review it after the workshop, and when I can be a little more mindful about that, and see if there's some new things that I can integrate into my mindfulness practice. Just because I'm keeping an eye on the time, and I really want to respect the hour that we have here so that you can get back to the rest of your day, I want to just move us a little bit further along in the workshop, and I want to talk about mindfulness and feminist self-care. So I feel that we have a good foundation of understanding both mindfulness and a mindfulness practice. And I really think that we would need hours, maybe days in person to really discuss, unpack, pull apart, and define the term feminist self-care. But we're going to start that conversation today. And to do so, I offer two guiding principles that I think are guiding principles of feminist self-care. And these are by no means the only two. The first is that self-care is praxis. It involves active engagement, critical thought, and purposeful follow-through. I find Maurice Hamilton's work, Embodied Care, to be helpful when thinking about the praxis of self-care, and here are some excerpts from his work that I found to be particularly resonant. Care is a way of being in the world that the habits and behaviors of our body facilitate. Care consists of practices that can be developed or allowed to atrophy. Care flows from the knowledge manifested in the body. Caring knowledge, habits, and imagination that radiate from our shared embodied existence can facilitate deconstructing, disempowering otherness. Hamilton talks about self-care in a way that I find so amazing, because he demonstrates the power of self-care on both a personal and a social level. Self-care can actually be an organizing force for building empathy, from deconstructing otherness. It makes me think about what Lori Beth said when she so beautifully described the FSDW workshop in her introduction, that the work of feminist scholars, and I'll add feminist self-care, is vital. It's ongoing. It speaks to current socioeconomic, political, and global trends. So caring for ourselves is crucial because it allows us to build capacity for empathy and for caring for others. I also want to caveat and say that self-care and the care for others is absolutely work and emotional labor. And I think it's a type of labor that we exercise in the classroom, in our jobs, in our families, and it's not the kind of labor that often receives a lot of recognition. I think a lot of us do a lot of caring for others, but this idea of self-care, right? Turning all of the energy that we give to others to ourselves. And I also really like the way he talks about care being linked to the body. to knowing what our bodies need, to listening to the cues that our bodies present to us. It's been a long journey for me to learn to listen to my body, but I have to say that it's been well worth it. So the second guiding concept that I offer you is that just that feminist self-care necessitates the deliberate union of the habits and activities of the mind and the body. I found that this concept is illustrated in an excerpt of Bell Hook's essay, Engaged Pedagogy, which is in her book, Teaching to Transgress, and it reads as follows. This is Bell Hook's voice. While I wanted teaching to be my career, I believed that personal success was intimately linked with self-actualization. My passion for this quest led me to interrogate constantly the mind-body split that was so often taken to be a given. Most professors were often deeply antagonistic toward, even scornful of, any approach to learning emerging from a philosophical standpoint emphasizing the union of mind, body, and spirit, rather than the separation of these elements. What Bell Hooks is saying here resonates so much with my own experience, and I firmly believe that feminist self-care must be directed towards the whole of our person, not privileging intellect over body or body over mind, but integrating and caring for our bodies, our minds, and our intellectual life together. So now that I've had the opportunity to offer two of what I think are the guiding concepts of feminist self-care, I'd like to invite you to do the same in the activities document. What do you think feminist self-care is? Thank you, Fiona, for making headings in the document. I love this first comment. Taking care to speak well of others, because that is how we build the community that can sustain us. Absolutely. I see someone else pointing out that feminist self-care cannot be the same thing for everybody, and I think that's 100% true. I see somebody else is talking about modeling care for graduate students. You know, by taking care of themselves, you can show them how that, taking care of yourself, you can show them how to take care of themselves, and I think that's absolutely important. I like this. Someone else talks about bragging about our accomplishments, owning our worth, and writing about the objective and subjective aspects of our mind, body, and work. I think that, you know, that self-advocacy can be so difficult, especially if there's a power dynamic where you have to advocate to yourself, to, you know, a hiring committee or to a superior, but so important both for your own sense of worth and also for your career. I love this. What someone just put, self-care is feminist because so much of the world's discourse tells us we're not worth it or that it's indulgent. That's absolutely a myth that I think we need to tear apart, that self-care is somehow indulgent as opposed to absolutely necessary and life-giving. I'm seeing a lot about the word community. Talking about boundaries with our time and what we do when. There's somebody else saying that feminist self-care makes them think about the phrase, the personal is political. We have to make sure that we're healthy in order to build the world that we want to see. I think that is so true and so profound. Someone else is talking about having a voice, learning when to say no and when to say yes, and knowing that it's okay to say both of those things. Being brave, absolutely. I see someone talking about their amazing experience of having worked in a male-dominated field and not realizing that there was anything different for them than for their colleagues. I see someone else has put an excellent cautionary note. Try not to equate self-care with consumption, right? Self-care doesn't always mean buying something, right? It's kind of like mindfulness. It's a way of being. I see Roxana has also shared a poem with us. Thank you so much. Okay, I want you to continue to make notes in this document about feminist self-care. Again, I'm going to turn our attention back to the workshop. And I want to say that, reading what you are writing here and given my own thoughts about feminist self-care, one thing that I will assert is that I think that mindfulness is a connection between the practice of feminist self-care and scholarship. And I'd like to illustrate this assertion for you by talking about a couple of exercises that show you how mindfulness-based self-care can be built into your scholarly practice, into your research and writing. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through 2 sample exercises that may or may not speak to you, and then we are going to take a few silent moments together to actually work through one of these exercises. Okay. So the first exercise is called Compassionately Navigating Imposter Syndrome and Self-Doubt. So I posit for you what is probably a familiar scenario, and I have to say this is a scenario that I experienced probably 100 times while prepping for this workshop. You have an idea for a new project. You have a new avenue you want to pursue in your current project. And your enthusiasm is immediately dampened by a flood of self-doubt and worry, right? It's the little voice that pops up, like the devil on your shoulder and says, you can't do that, you don't know enough, you don't have the resources, it'll just go on, and it gets meaner and meaner, and it really tears you down, and it can be so hard to come back from that, right? And it's so much work to overcome that, and we have to do it again and again and again. And I find that one way, to kind of just help deflect that voice is through a mindfulness practice. So here's the mindfulness practice for when you are attacked by that voice, that self-doubting voice. The first step, close your eyes and take a deep breath. The kind of breath where you're breathing through your entire diaphragm. It's coming up through the back of your throat. Those of you who practice yoga, kind of a yogic breath. And after you've taken this cleansing breath, tuning in and just noticing everything that you feel. You may feel excitement about your new idea. You're feeling worry. You're feeling fear. Maybe you're feeling shame and anxiety. The whole gauntlet. Just notice everything that you're feeling in this entire whirlwind. The third step is to compassionately acknowledge your feelings without judgment. Now this is so hard, especially because we really want to just fight against, like, how dare that anxiety come to me? How dare, this self-doubting voice speak in my ear again? We want to get angry. But I want to say it again, compassionately acknowledge your feelings without judgment. You could say to yourself something like, I see that I'm feeling anxious and inadequate about this new idea. Right? It's just kind of a neutral statement that just states what is happening, kind of where you are. The final step is, to take another deep breath and, having acknowledged what is going on, make a choice to trust yourself. You could do this by saying to yourself, all of these feelings are just that. They're just feelings. They may not go away right this moment, but I choose to trust myself. I choose to follow my idea. For myself, it was I choose to teach this workshop on feminist mindfulness. Okay. And something else about this exercise that I want to really highlight is the importance of breath for incorporating your mental and emotional experience. And it gives you time to assess. It gives you a little space between the barrage of emotions and what you want to do, and just helps you relax into everything. Okay? The second exercise I want to talk to you about is something I call embodied writing, and it's adapted from Mindfulness of Posture in a wonderful book called How to Train a Wild Elephant, a book on mindfulness. It's also a modified body scan. So here's our second scenario. You have been sitting at your laptop for 2 hours writing, and you've hardly realized that your leg is asleep, you're clenching your jaw, and your eyes burn. Here's the mindfulness practice. When you're writing for a long stretch, make an effort every half hour or so just to notice your body, and in that noticing, to gently inquire, what is my posture? How does my head feel? How does my back feel? Is my body sending me any cues? Hunger, thirst? What's my breath doing? Is it even? Is it uneven? Am I perhaps holding my breath? How do my eyes feel? If it's helpful to you, you can notice your body in order, starting from your feet going up or your head going down. For me, this type of structured body scan is very difficult. So, it's also perfectly valid to just tune in and notice all the sensations wherever they're happening throughout your body. So just like the other exercise, this exercise is not about changing anything in the moment. Though if you do recognize a cue that your body needs something, by all means, fulfill that. If it's thirsty, have a drink. If it needs to stand up, stand up. But this exercise is meant to integrate our bodies into the experiences of our mind and to help us cultivate curiosity about those experiences. I find that writing, and particularly in front of the computer, is a very disembodying experience, right? Because you're just there typing on those keys, trying to get thoughts, from your brain onto paper in an intelligent manner. This is just a way of bringing your body into that experience with you. So now that I've had the opportunity to share a couple of exercises with you, do you have any mindfulness exercises that you think you could apply to your scholarship? Go ahead and share those in the document. I love that someone has just said that they give themselves permission to have naps. I find that for me, that is so rejuvenating. Especially if you can give yourself that permission in the midst of a big project, just letting your body have that rest that it needs. That someone else is saying that they move to the piano and that they also sing. Someone else has a note on their desk to do do some yoga, some chair stretches. Someone else uses a timer and writes for structured bits. I see that someone else is going to add the body scan exercise to their writing blocks of 30 minutes. That's so wonderful. That's right. Also knowing what consists of a break, right? Laundry, not a break, but doing something physical, a break. And I like that a lot of the things that you're sharing in the document are about physicality, right? This goes back to my earlier point about the embodied nature of self-care, the embodied nature of our mindfulness practices, and just ways to integrate our bodies into our intellectual life. We don't need to be heads in a jar, right? We are full people with bodies that have needs, with minds that have needs, with intellects that have needs. Working with a writing partner in the same physical space, I find that writing can be very isolating, right? Because it's just you and the computer, you and your thoughts. I think research can also be isolating. So taking the time to be at least in community, even if it's silent community with somebody else, it's very helpful. See, someone else has set boundaries about the time when they write so that they can be mindful for their need for rest and sleep. This one, somebody else has said something, very profound, that they let themselves cry when they need to. Sometimes, you get frustrated and upset and just let yourself cry. And I think that is so important, right? It's, letting your emotions out through your body. Someone else talking about companionship of people across disciplines. I love that phrase. I think we really get broken down into our disciplinary boxes or even our professional boxes, professor, librarian, teacher, and we don't tend to cross-pollinate in that way. I love what someone else says, that their life builds boundaries around their time for writing, so writing actually feels relaxing. I think that's so true. That's actually my current experience as opposed to how I felt a few years ago when I was writing a lot more. Look at this. Someone else puts handwritten notes and mailed them to the office so that they can be reminded to stop and take stock of their greatness. That is so beautiful. So again, themes of friendship and community are coming out here. The importance of being compassionate with yourself, just as compassionate as you are with your students, your friends. I had a very wise woman once say to me, when I was kind of voicing some of the negative self-doubt that came in my head. She said, imagine yourself as you were when you were a young child. Would you say that to yourself? Well, that can be another helpful way of kind of stepping aside from those thoughts. So many people with these timer tools, that's so great. If you have a specific timer to recommend, please do so. Drinking hot tea. Okay, I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds just to write a few more notes, and then I'm going to lead you through a variation of the body scan exercise, okay? Okay, so what we're going to do now is that for 3 minutes, we're actually just going to be silent together. And I'm going to put up a timer on the screen. And 3 minutes may sound short, but I know it's going to feel very long. And so what I want you to do to get started is if you'll just join me in taking a deep breath and kind of relaxing into your body. And for the next 3 minutes, I want you to just do the exercise 2, except that you won't be writing. And I want you just to tune into your body and to just inquire as to what's going on with it. If you want to take it another step further, also turn into your emotions and just see how you're feeling. And again, remember that you're not trying to solve anything and you're not trying to judge. All that we're doing is noticing, okay? So I'm going to go over here to the timer and I'm going to press start. So for 3 minutes, deep breath and begin. If you find that your attention has wandered, just gently bring it back to your body. Maybe take another deep breath and continue to observe. Just about a minute left in this exercise. Take a moment to congratulate yourself for tuning into your body and just give it a little bit more attention. Just another minute's worth of attention. Really see everything that it's feeling. So how was that? I'm curious. Go ahead and head back to the activities document and just, comment on what was that experience like of being silent and tuning into your body. Was it comfortable, uncomfortable? What did it make you think and feel? Someone feels like they need a nap and almost fell asleep. See, absolutely. Yeah. Being aware of our nervous tics. Yeah. Hmm. A great sense of relief and calmness. I'm so glad. I had problems. This is so difficult. I have to say that I have a lot of trouble with this also, because as soon as you start to tune in, then that your mind starts spinning, right, with your to-do list and things you could do next and what you want to say and eat and wear. And someone else is noticing that they had trouble not trying to solve the feelings that they came across. Absolutely. I think that's our first instinct and one of the hardest to just push aside. Somebody else is noticing how tense your body is naturally and trying to relax certain muscles. Our poor bodies, we walk around all day on our legs and our feet. We hold things up with our arms. We type with our fingers. And there's a lot of effort. Sometimes at the end of this type of body scan, you might just take a moment and thank your body for all the work that it's doing for you. Thank you, Fiona, for commenting. There's no such thing as a perfect mindfulness practice, and that re-engaging with your practice after your mind has wandered is the practice. That is so crucial, to not let ourselves judge ourselves about our mindfulness practice. It's so ingrained in us. I see someone liked doing it with others. It's nice to know that you're not alone. Someone else has realized that they're hungry, they've forgotten to eat today, right? These hunger cues, right? We can find sometimes become so disembodied that we forget our basic needs. And just learning to pay attention to those cues, understand them, accept them, and then be willing to act on them when necessary. I think a lot of us are going to need a little bit of an afternoon or a morning nap. Absolutely. I think maybe might not get enough sleep, or some of us, like myself, I think our natural rhythm is to need a nap during the day, and so the 9 to 5 schedule can be very difficult, not having an opportunity. Right? Someone else made them realize that they missed their yoga mat. Look at all of the things that we've learned about ourselves, about our lives, just for 3 quiet minutes of tuning into our bodies, right? It's just a reminder about how powerful a mindfulness practice is, and that it doesn't have to be something hard or long. Even if you tune into your body for 30 seconds on the bus, right? It's just about being present, being fully present in our experience, right? Because the more present we are in our experience, one, the more fully we experience it, but two, the more choices we have about the outcome, right? Somebody else started crying. That absolutely happens to me so much, and especially when I was very deep into a lot of the things I was struggling with personally. Even walking into a doctor's office would make me cry because I would realize I would need to start paying attention to what was happening in my body. So I want to be sensitive of our time. We had set aside an hour for this workshop from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and it is 2 p.m. If I can just bring your attention back to the handout for a moment. I'd love to continue this conversation. These Google Docs will remain open throughout the week. I've created a HASTAC, I've been mispronouncing it for years, group called Feminist, Mindfulness, and Self-Care. I really encourage you to join and to post your thoughts. Maybe we can continue this discussion. Maybe we can write something together, or at the very least, maybe it can be a space if you need to do a kind of body scan and you want to feel like you're with somebody else. I've also started a Zotero resource list that's linked here. I want you to feel free to look at this and to add to it if you find anything that's related, even tangentially to what we've talked about today, just building a community resource list. And lastly, I want to make myself available. You have my email address here and my Twitter handle, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have anything that you want to say, if you want to continue this conversation on a one-on-one basis. If people want to stay around, I'm happy to take questions in the Google Doc. But for those of you who do need to leave at 2, I just want to say thank you for your time and your engagement, and may your scholarship be fruitful, and may your feminist self-care practice grow.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I want to give you applause. I know you can't hear everybody.
Thank you.
We'll give you a virtual applause.
Thank you.
I also want to say, too, thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate it. And I also want to thank all of our volunteers this year, and especially Amanda for putting together this fantastic workshop. In fact, Amanda, as you were walking us through these steps, I was thinking, wow, this is going to be so helpful for me going into a week of writing, of peer review, of sitting at my computer desk for really long, hours during the day. So I hope that we can remember some of what Amanda talked with us about here today as we move into a week of collaboration, writing, and peer review. So thank you so much, Amanda. We really appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you all for your time and, just for being present here. This has been something I've wanted to do for a really long time. So thank you for helping me make it happen.
Thank you. And thank you all again for coming.
And I'm going to be in the Google Doc for a little while if people have questions, okay?
Thank you so much, Lori Beth, for organizing the Feminist Scholars Digital Workshop again this year. It's a really phenomenal group, and for those of you who don't know, she started off as a HASTAC scholar and organized that under the auspices of the Scholarship Program. I have laryngitis, so it's hard for me to explain what this program is, but it's mostly for graduate students as well as some undergraduate students who work at the intersection of technology and humanities, very, very widely defined. And oftentimes people are working on interdisciplinary projects, which can themselves be very stressful because you don't always have the support of your department, or you don't have the kinds of literature that you need to have, and are trying to figure out how to make a project happen in difficult circumstances. I think this kind of mindfulness of what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it is going to be really amazing. We are going to be running the program for, again, another year, thankfully. So if you're interested in that, get in touch with Calais or I. This is Fiona Barnett speaking. You can email me at fiona@hastac.org or find me on the HASTAC site. And I know that there are groups within that have sprouted up to sort of help each other within the research. So if that's something, if there's an interest next year having a feminist scholarship mindfulness group where you guys check in weekly or monthly on your ideas or your practices, that would be amazing, and I would totally be glad to help set that up as part of the HASTAC Scholars organization. So thank you, Amanda. This was totally amazing, and I think a really amazing way of thinking about how our own work and self-care can be brought together as one, and to make both of them better on each side. And I would love to have you back in the fall as a as a speaker of the HASTAC Scholars Group this year. So we'll be in touch about that. And thank you, Lori Beth, again, organizing this. This was really phenomenal, and it was really great to see all of you chatting. I know some of you had a hard time getting into the Google Docs. We're really sorry about that. I had no idea Google Docs was going to have a hard time with this many people. But the Google Docs will be open, and you're more than welcome to jump in there again and email any of us if you have further questions.
Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks again, Amanda. I can't hear you. Oh, I saw your mouth move.
Oh, I forgot that I muted my microphone by accident. Thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and this is incredibly helpful. I think going into a week of writing and spending a long time at the computer. So I'm going to take this with me, and whenever I get frustrated, I'm going to remind myself of some of these tips you covered today.
Oh, thank you so much. And I feel like I'm going to miss talking to you about this workshop every week. So.
Hey, we can keep doing it. We've got the forums, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
All right. Well, I look forward to talking with you and everyone else there.
Same here. Bye.
Bye.